back to Culture and Code. I'm Nina.
And I'm the co-host, Ray.
Today's episode is inspired by the quote, I think you're confusing peace with quiet. That's from the movie Avengers Age of Ultron. Ultron said that.
Yeah, he did. It was a good movie, and I think it's very well aligned to what we're going to talk to you about today, which is listening. So today we're, diving into a skill that can completely change your career outlook, I would say, especially in my experience, listening. So today's episode is about the power of listening from individual contributor to leader. So we're going to go from the end to end approach of how listening affects your career.
Say you're an architect without saying you're an architect end to end.
End to end, yes, exactly.
Most people think leadership is about talking, directing, and making decisions. But here's the truth. Great leaders listen more than they speak.
I agree with that. That's why I'm such a great leader. And but seriously, before we jump in, I'm gonna pose a question for our listeners and also for me and your conversation today, right? So the question is, when was the last time you felt truly heard at work? And think about it for a second. Like really think about how being heard has affected you and whether you have really felt heard at work.
I got my answer. Does everyone out there have their answers? Well,
Sure.
hold on to it because we're going to come back to it and why it matters.
Exactly. So, Nina, I'm gonna go ahead and start off with asking you a question.
As
Why
per
do you,
usual.
yeah, for sure. Why do you feel like listening is such a big deal, in your own words?
So, active listening, it builds trust, right? When you really hear someone, they feel valued, they feel seen and heard, and trust is the foundation to any collaboration, friendship, relationship. It really is foundational.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Give me an
How about
example.
you?
Give me an example of when that happened, when you're able to actively listen.
It's going to be a personal example with my kids. When they got older, like we're talking late teens, early adulthood, early 20s, I started really listening to what they were saying. And the surprise was, oh my God, I learned something, right? As parents, we often think we know more than our kids, especially, in previous generations. And if you pause to listen to what's really being said, you can learn so much and learn more about how the next generation thinks and interprets things. How about you? What's an example you got?
I agree with the example you said. I'm kind of piggyback off of the kids. Um, my kids aren't 20 yet, but I do find myself active listening to them even at 7 and 6 years old because there's a lot that I did not realize they actually understood. So even at 6 and 7, I'm gonna say one of the good things about my kids is because just as we are kind of geeky with the comic books, they are also very geeky. And I'm always surprised when they can respond back to me with accurate like history on a character.
Yeah.
I'm like, who told you that? And they either it was me or it was TV. Well, a lot of times it was me, but I forgot the conversation. So I'm like, oh my God, like they actually are sponges. They kind of take it in. But that's just a personal story. I would say from career wise, because I'm telling you the end to end, like you said, from an architect perspective, I would say the early when I started off as a like analyst, senior analyst,
Hmm.
having my head down and really focused on like building things and implementing, I thought that was like a clear like visibility and pathway to success in my career. And I think I would say like as an analyst that was pretty helpful, but once you start getting to that senior analyst level, there's something called active listening, where it's not just hands on keyboards and kind of putting things out, which a lot of the things I did back then was data integration, some reporting, right? Um, actually listening to, especially the end users and those who you're working for, the
Yeah.
client, understanding what their requirements are. Like you can't run at that same pace when you're not actively listening. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You have to do a lot of redos, and I realized that very quickly. And it's also one of the reasons why I actually don't like doing reporting. Because there's so much conversation and hey, that should be left justified, and that should be,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'll stay in the back end and do the data integration and that kind of things, right? So
Data
that's my
nerds
example.
unite. Well, that's a great example. It's a perfect example because listening uncovers so many insights that you just would not get if you were just heads down in your own corner coding and building, and just focusing on your own tasks, right? So, listening, especially active listening, you learn so much more. And, in the line of work we're in, you learn more about the business as well, which makes us better developers or engineers or architects.
I would say even better partners, right? So
Yeah,
to your point about what we're doing as a role is important, but for our clients, we're striving to be partners, right? We're not striving
absolutely.
to be just a developer.
Yeah. So, listeners out there, think about a time when listening helped you solve a problem and share it with us on LinkedIn using the hashtag Culture and Code Podcast.
I like that. We have our own hashtag now.
Yeah.
We're big stuff now on episode one. Um, okay, let's talk about leadership, right? So I have another question.
Mhm.
How does listening effectively change the way you feel you are seen as a leader?
I think for leaders, listening is a superpower, right? It helps you make better decisions, because you're informed, you've gotten some insights from the people that you're partnered with, and it includes multiple perspectives. It also empowers your team to contribute to the conversation. And again, expanding on perspectives and diversity of perspectives. We don't talk about diversity enough anymore, but it's really important and it goes beyond, you know, the typical factors, right? It's also diversity of thought, and we that is informed by our life experiences and the paths that we all travel throughout life. So I think when you are listening as a leader, it helps build the team up, helps them build confidence, and that helps you as a leader bring up the next generation of leaders. And then they feel more empowered and like their career matters to you, which it does, and it should as a leader. It really should.
I agree with you. Um, I would say for me to answer the same question, leaders have a tendency to not always show their humility, right?
Mhm.
Show that they can be humble. The biggest thing with that is that as leaders, they're looking to us to have answers, but we don't always have all the answers. I mean, I would say 90% of the time we don't have all the answers. Today me and my family, we went to go see Wicked for Good. So I do have that in my head. I always think about the wizard, the
Yeah.
wonderful wizard, right? So the all-powerful wizard that really didn't know how to do magic, and I'm not ruining it for anybody, right? He didn't know how to do magic. He wasn't really all that powerful, and the power of suggestion was used quite a bit as opposed to actually fulfilling people's desires, right? So that doesn't work as a leader in consulting.
It sure doesn't.
Um, you got to be humble, right? I would say, in my experience, the best leaders, again, end to end even earlier in my career, were the ones that were able to roll their sleeves and actually look something up
Yeah.
instead of saying, "Hey, here's the answer," and then setting me down a path that didn't actually go anywhere. Um, Early on, coming out of college, going into the real world, there's not as many like breaks and study time for you can do it while you're actively on a project in that 8 hour window, right? So you do need the right direction from leaders. And when you don't get the right direction, you spin, right? You churn quite a bit and time is wasted. You're not able to deliver. So I do think as a good a leader, listening and being able to say, "Hey, I actually don't know that answer, but we'll look it up together," means the most
Yeah.
to an early career, personally, someone starting out early in a career.
Yeah, I got an example for that. I was driving our youngest son around. He was in seventh grade, and we were talking about decision making, which tends to be challenging at that age. And he had, it came up in conversation that when he was younger, I had given him an instruction, and that kind of informed how he made decisions. And I'm like, uh, guess what? I don't know everything. I'm a parent, and I'm your parent for the first time, so I'm learning as you grow. I'm growing with you, and we're gonna make mistakes together, but together we're gonna figure it out.
Uh,
And the look on his face was like utter surprise and sheer terror because he was hit with the realization that, holy crap, mom doesn't know everything. What are we gonna do? We gonna figure it out. That's what we gonna do.
that's
Uh,
the equivalent to the airline pilot saying, "Hey, I'm the
oh
cockpit.
my
Well,
God.
you guys trust me, but I'll tell you, this is my first time. I don't really know
Oh
why there's so
no.
many clouds up here. I'm just gonna keep going. Hopefully, we'll make it." Like as a kid, you're like, "Wait, what? You're supposed to be the one in control." You're like, "No, just winging it. We're gonna land this plane eventually. We got it."
Winging it, no pun intended.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's a
that's
good example. That's a
hilarious.
really good example, actually. Yeah.
Right. All right, I got another anecdote. So, as you know, in my volunteer world, I'm on the board of directors for a local co-op that we just opened up in our suburb,
Mhm.
food co-op. And so, our general manager, I wear two hats when I'm interacting with him. I'm either a board member, so his boss, his leader, or I'm a customer. Probably a third hat, I'm just a neighborhood person, right? So every time I go into the store to go shopping, if I see him, I'm like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And he starts giving me a full report on sales and performance and all of these KPIs. And I'm there as a shopper. I am really asking about how he's doing as a human being. And so we were having a conversation at our board retreat a few weeks ago. And I'm like, hey, when I ask you how you're doing, it's because I really care about your well-being. And I just want to know how you get GM as a human being that I happen to interact with. How are you feeling today? So, for all of our listeners out there, in your next meeting, try this. Ask one open-ended question and just listen. And then tell us how it goes. Again, using the hashtag Culture and Code Podcast.
I really like that. That a hashtag. It's so cool. Makes it. No, I think that's a really good example. One thing I will say about that is like, we sometimes need to learn context clues as well. So you
Yeah.
gave a really good example of someone looking at you without looking at the situation and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm in this specific scenario," right? And he totally got it wrong because he wasn't paying attention to context clues. The
Yeah.
question was, "How are you doing?" Not how is the business doing?
Right.
uh those kind of things, right? So but he was used to answering a question in your other role, uh
Yeah.
and had to do a bit of switch to make sure that he understood what you were really asking. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
all right, let's get practical. In your opinion, Nina, because you're the all-knowing and wonderful Oz in this situation, what how can someone improve their listening skills?
I think it's really important to maintain eye contact, which is something that we've kind of strayed a little bit from as a society, especially because our heads are always in our cell phones, right? And so, and also with the remote aspect of school and work, um, maintaining eye contact has become a challenge for some people. So I think that's really important, right? Because that one, it connects you directly and it creates a almost like an energy exchange, if you will.
Mhm.
But it also is a physical cue, a nonverbal cue, letting the other person know that you're paying attention, that you're actively listening. Um, Asking clarifying questions. Don't assume anything. And that's the topic for another episode. But don't assume anything. Ask those clarifying questions. And if something isn't clear to you, ask. um, Avoid interrupting. It's one thing to have those verbal cues which acknowledge that you're paying attention and listening, and it's another thing to interrupt the speaker, and especially if they're mid thought or mid sentence, and in some cultures that's considered rude. But also it disrupts that person's thought process and flow. So you can throw them off track, and then that just everyone just kind of feels like the wind was just let out, like, so that's never good. And reflect back on what you heard. I think that's really important because, especially depending on your personality type, sometimes you need to take a step back and process everything that's been said. But even if you're not that personality type, it's really good to just sit with the knowledge that's been shared and really reflect on it. Reflect on what the speaker meant, reflect on how you interpret it and what your thoughts are on it, and maybe you want to expand on those thoughts and contribute to the conversation.
Agreed. I do like to avoid interrupting. I think that was one I had to learn. Through my
You? Really?
yeah. See, well, you just jumped in while I was in the middle of a sentence, so maybe you're still learning as well.
You maybe.
But yeah, no, avoiding interrupting was a hard one for me. Not so much with clients, but I would say with fellow teammates. So if I thought I knew where the conversation was going or where the manager was going to ask me to go, I would interrupt, right? And I did have several situations where I was told to, kind of slow down, listen, those kind of things, right? Actually be a listener and not just assuming you know what the next steps are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would also say the last one you said, the reflecting back is important as well. A lot of times we have a tendency to listen. We may take notes or we may take mental notes, but repeating it back saves so much trouble. Like it
Yeah.
saves you so much time, and you can avoid trouble that way because if you have misheard anything, reflecting back is one thing, but actually saying what you heard back to the person actually helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
Again, going back to mishaps within UAT, with testing and all those kind of things, not actually going back and saying, okay, this bug says this, and asking more questions about it, or reflecting back on what they originally said it was. I mean, you will literally chase a rabbit down a hole that just has no end. Uh,
Yeah.
Really, yeah. So I think all the ones you said, right? Because I mean, even asking clarifying questions, that goes back to testing as well, right? I mean, again, you're in a situation where you have a bug
Hmm.
that says report slow.
Oh my God.
Like, what does
That's
that
like
mean?
an Oracle error message.
There's no definition in that at all.
None.
I need to ask some clarifying questions, and I'm going to ask you never to do that again. Um, so
Yeah.
again, yeah, I completely agree with all of those. The maintaining eye contact, I do. The only thing I say about that one is, um, some people have issues
Yeah.
with eye contact, right? So that one can be difficult. You as a leader have to know who you're working with, and know how they um, uh, are socially, right? How they
Yeah.
interact socially. So a lot of people do not maintain eye contact. It doesn't matter if you're, like right in their face, just focused on them. They might not, because that's just not the way that they express themselves. But
Hmm.
I would say that one is know your audience, and
Yeah.
that probably should be on that list too, right? Probably the first one should be know your audience, and then maintain eye contact, because you know your audience, number two, may not be as important to maintaining eye contact. But that's the only thing I have. I think you did a great job, and I didn't interrupt you. So that was awesome for you. Kudos for me.
That was very good. You
Yeah,
passed the test.
thank you.
Now, here's a bonus tip, right? After a conversation, write down what you learned and maybe some important points. It trains your brain to pay attention. And for me, the physical act of writing with a pen and paper, it's kind of like a commit statement to a database. It sets it in my brain in the long-term memory. Um, and especially because we're always multitasking. So just writing it, you're passively committing it to memory. I think that's a really, really helpful tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so to our listeners, which of these tips will you try first? Remember to drop a comment on LinkedIn for this podcast episode and use the hashtag Culture and Code Podcast.
I'm gonna change the hashtag in our next meeting or our next podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, keep going. Let's go, Nina. This is actually a good conversation, and I need to stop
Yeah.
so many jokes. All right, back to me. How does listening, in your opinion, help someone make that leap to leadership? So we're covering this end to end, Nina.
Mhm.
We've done a lot of, I would say, the analyst, consultant, maybe early stage manager, right?
Mhm.
So now you're getting to the point where you're going to be leading teams and or leading part of the business. Like, what do you think
Yeah.
is important for like how does that listening help someone? Like,
In keeping with the end-to-end architecture theme,
mhm.
when you listen, you spot patterns, or
Yeah,
like architecture patterns, behavioral patterns. You learn pain points, opportunities, ideas, just different perspectives. You become the person who connects the dots. And that's a lot about that. That has a lot to do with what leadership is about, right? Is being able to connect those dots, connect people, connect ideas and plans.
okay, makes sense. I would also add to that. I think the more you listen, the more it gives you an opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm building an influence with that
Yeah.
team," right? Because people will start to trust you. Again, it goes back to the person who rolls their sleeves up and actually is humble and then is listening to the problems of their team, right? And not just assuming they understand what the problems are, right? People are going to start to trust you. They'll say, "Hey, this person is, for the lack of better words, in the trenches with me, working alongside me," right? So that
Yeah.
trust is kind of built, and it becomes like a not a friendship, but it's a I would say a stronger like partnership in leaders. So I feel that the best leaders, in my opinions, are the ones who are not your friends. They're not your friends in the situation, but they are going to partner with you and understand what will get to done, right?
Yeah.
Or what will get to improvement. It's not always about
Yeah.
what's getting to done. There's improvements in the team. There's improvements in the client facing items, right? And there's improvements in just the hey, I'm gonna actually build somebody to be a better version of themselves in their next role, right? So I think those are the partnerships and the trusted relationship you're looking for. Again, not friendships. Not important to be friends because most of the leaders I've had, I would not say they were my friends.
Well, they're
there,
supportive, right?
there's a handful.
Yeah, there's a handful.
There's a handful that are friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I jokes aside, no, seriously, that partnership is important.
Yeah, they're supportive.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. So for you and for our listeners and myself, here's our next challenge. In your next meeting, and this is going to be hard for you, Rayfield, speak less and listen more.
Yeah, I did a good job today. Thank you very much.
See what happens. I don't know. We might have to do a word count here. But see what happens if you speak less and listen more. And maybe you'll see that you hear other voices come out of the woodwork and other ideas.
Yeah, I think it's a good goal, right? It's a good
It's a
challenge.
goal.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? So like I will, since we're getting ready, they don't know what day this is, but it's Sunday. So we're getting ready to go back into a work week. So I'm gonna, in my next meeting, make sure I speak less and listen more. Um, client conversations probably won't be that many because we're heading into the holiday.
Yeah.
So I'll let them know exactly when this podcast was actually taped. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like speaking less and listening more is very important. Um, and then again, you didn't say it there, but and then kind of jotting down what I heard probably will be helpful. So I'm going to put that as an addition to my challenge. I would say if the listeners want to do that as well, it'd be great. Let us know how that worked out. Again, the Culture and Code Pass podcast hashtag. I don't know. I'm gonna add
Aren't
something.
you a millennial? Aren't you supposed to know how to say a hashtag?
I am a millennial. Thank you. And that was a different generation of millennials that came up with that, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're a geriatric millennial.
I'm a geriatric millennial, exactly. Anyway, so I'm gonna do a quick recap, because I want to make sure I understood what you were saying, But in seriousness, all for this episode, my quick recap is this, right? So we talked a lot about leaders and how listening builds trust. It does inform the decisions. It definitely builds the team partnership. And if you're looking for that next step, so you're going end to end again, you're saying, "Hey, I want to take on more responsibility." It does signal that readiness for leadership. So other leaders see that as you're actively listening, right? So it does signal to them that you're ready for that next step in leadership. It might not be a huge leap to CEO, but it might be, "Hey, he's ready to manage this team," or they are ready to manage this team. So,
Yeah.
what do you got for me? You got anything for a closing?
Yeah. So our action steps, our collective action steps. Practice active listening this week. Jot down notes from the meeting, the things you're hearing, and maybe try speaking less and listening more if you tend to be one of those who speaks more. If you listen more, try the reverse and see how that goes. And it'd be good to hear some new ideas in these meetings. Share
No,
your experiences with us. Remember, hashtag culture and code podcast.
I'm not going to take offense. I know you're maintaining eye contact with me. You're not actually looking at me when you're saying speak less and listen more. So I'm uh I'm gonna take it as you're maintaining eye contact in a podcast. So for everybody who was able to, join us in this podcast today, we appreciate you listening in. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep listening and keep leading.
Thanks, everyone.